If I go to sleep, you can shout at me.
I think we all will.
No. We'll let you sleep so that
we'll
others can
enjoy
talk.
the silence. We'll enjoy the silence.
Well, I nearly said, I nearly came and said, right, I will now put Steve into a light coma and talk about all the various incarnations of Galadriel through the Silmarillion, but I thought, no, that might be a bit too quick.
If you ever, well, I did, that was, that was the joke of a Stuffy and Friends short where I was like, hey, Stuffy, I can't sleep. Come in here and talk me to sleep. And he said, okay, the reason why Aragorn has more than one name.
He shouldn't have more than one name. He was okay. So again, in Lord of the Rings, the one time that thought slime just threw the book across the room is when he got to like the Preve in the bar scene. Tolkien was describing everyone. The guy over there, this person in here, the two dancing in the middle of the room, and the two guys having the bar to chat about everything. And then there's Strider in back, and that's it. And he's the main character, and Strider's not even his name.
As long as we know like what the
shoe in the room, I found that very interesting.
As long as we know what the shoe sizes of every character in the book are.
Wait, are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Oh yeah. I just want to note that the world almost ended because of the innkeeper's ADHD. He forgot to send a letter for like a year.
The one character in the book I wanted to punch in the nose. That I really wanted to sort of grab him by the throat and say, "You stupid, thoughtless, ignorant bitch!"
I love like taking complex fantasy narratives and then just summing up silly parts of them in a sentence like that. Because one of the things I love about Narnia is because it lets me say things like emergency meeting of the Parliament of Owls, in one sentence, and then and then she said a swear and her entire planet died in another sentence.
But anyway, we were discussing before we went live, and Russell, you had your hand up as well too. Go ahead. You can even mention about Star Trek 5 too if you want.
Yeah. If you...
that was just between me and Steve. He knows it wasn't.
That was private. How dare you, geek?
Yeah. But I'm doing my part, just to clarify.
Sure.
So are my friends who are voting Harris. But really, why such a panic that Trump's going to win? Do you see this guy?
Hey, let him finish his point. Let him
face that narcissist character of his. I'm not a violent person. Even I want to smack that smirk off his face.
No, but some people don't. No.
Well,
people do actually like
then
him.
why? Yeah, well, hang on. So, Russell, the way you just described him, I agree with you completely. Then why would you want that person to be president? Because that's what people. Well, but he might be. So that's why people are worried. It's not that complicated. He won in 2016, so he could theoretically win this time too.
Oh yeah,
and that would be a bad thing.
And also, there's always a chance. And also, let's just remember that the United States of America is a settler colonialist white supremacist project from the beginning, because this country was founded on the stolen land of the indigenous people who were slaughtered in the stealing of that land, and also they built on the backs of slaves when the colonies wanted to keep slaves. And so this is a white supremacist project from the beginning. So it's hard to get rid of the white supremacy out of the United States of America.
If we gave extra electoral votes to the indigenous tribes, maybe we wouldn't have to worry as much. But
as opposed to the slave states.
Actually, one of our greatest black magic writers, Dennis Wheatley, thought that all the upper class people should have more than one vote. He recognized that all the men should have 6 votes each. And all the women should have about 4 or 5. He was not a fan of the system we have at the moment, which is one man, one vote, and that's you have. He was.
That's a version. That's a precursor of what J.D. Vance was attempting to articulate in one of the podcast interviews that he got dug up after he became the VP nominee. That basically people with children should be able to vote on behalf of their children until the children turn 18 and become eligible voters. That the parents should be able to control the votes of their kids, and therefore parents with underage kids should have more votes than people without kids.
It also, I think, implies that the kids will vote just like their parents, right?
Yeah, exactly. That, because I mean,
to the point where until they're 18, they aren't allowed to use their vote. Their parents vote for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a load of bullshit, because my parents were both Republicans and I've been voting Democratic since '76.
Imagine you're a kid and your parents are using your votes to persecute your friends at school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a further point too, because in 1968 I was exposed to the draft, and I mean, I had no choice in the matter. I had a 2S deferment until 1972 because it took me 5 years to get out of case. And that 5th year, I was 1A. Not fun. Can you say paranoia, boys and girls? Because I was. And the only good thing that Richard Nixon ever did was stop the draft before I got drafted.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted to win an election, so
exactly. We got to get these teenagers to vote for me somehow.
Yeah. It wasn't the teenagers. Most pissed off if my parents had voted Conservative on his behalf, because he never did.
I think somebody mentioned that it wasn't the teenagers. Yes, because one of the persistent myths of the Vietnam War is that they spat on the veterans and all that. In fact, during 1968 to 69, a lot of the veterans, in fact, joined the ranks.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the whole thing about Swift voting in 2004, right? That Kerry was one of those veterans that betrayed his country, right? He was
VAW, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. I remember it well, and it was a powerful force. Don't make any mistake about it.
He was the one who said or promoted the "Who wants to die? Won't be last man who died for a mistake," and that was a very powerful statement. That later on there was the whole implementation of what called the American version of the stab in the back. Or we're gonna blame the kids, we're gonna blame the media, we're gonna blame all this for we losing. That became the sort of, just like in World War I, World War II, the conservatives were able to turn the concept around by the 1980s. Oh, we're gonna celebrate the veterans, but condemn those who have fought, made us lose the war. And that is such a ahistorical take that's how we ended up invading Iraq in 2002, because people don't know their history.
I gotta throw in a side note here. Anybody here remember the group Country Joe and the Fish?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Come on, mothers throughout the land, send your boys off to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate. Send your sons off before it's too late. Be the first ones on your box to bring your boy back home in a box.
Yeah, great song.
And that was, in fact, that was written and sung at Woodstock in 1969.
Yeah, it was.
During the war. Huh. Yeah. Good God. What is the good for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, God, people who try to demonize Vietnam protesters, especially with, decades after the fact. I mean, goddamn, Johnny Cash was against the war. Johnny Cash released songs saying, hey, don't be too hard on the kids who are protesting the war. They're just doing what they think is right. So if Johnny Cash gets it in like 1968, what's your excuse for not getting it in 2024?
Martin Luther King Jr. had a speech against Vietnam. If he could, because in his conscience, he could not call out against the violence that was affecting his people if he did not also call out the violence that his government was perpetrating.
It was an incredibly popular war. Like, it wasn't just some students protesting, here and there. Like, the student protests were just a part of it. It was an incredibly unpopular.
I can't remember who the president was during the first of the Vietnam War, but did you know the US government approached our government and said they would cancel leaseland if we joined them? And Wilson, who had actually had his own intelligence, turned around and said, no, thank you. It's a lost cause. It's a lost cause. You will be fighting in jungles. You'll be fighting people who will fight back in basically guerrilla warfare. They will not come in and like you. Which kind of leads me on to what I was quickly going to say to Steve when I was looking at all his videos about the janitor and the Starfleet and all this. It's really interesting that the people, particularly the chef, because the chef comes from what we would call a one-horse dorp, which is it's a Scottish term for a place that has maybe 4 or 5 houses, a basic village shop, and maybe a pub, and that's it. That's what you've got. And your only way of getting anywhere is to get out of there, either to get down to London or to a city or somewhere else. So that I can understand this chef who's kind of got up in Starfleet. That's basically what Starfleet does. And that's, I think, what Eddington can't grasp and Sisko can't explain. Eddington's, we want to get back to the Earth. We want to do this. We want to do this. And Sisko's saying, but you've got the advantages. Starfleet doesn't go in and pound people into the dirt with a shovel. Starfleet gives people advantages. It takes people from one-horse dorps and gives them careers and lives and praises talent. You want to throw all that away in possibly the worst way possible. Anyway, that's my take. But
a few hands up. So
I was just going to say I have things to say about that, but we have hands up. And there's a bunch of them. Everybody has. So I'm gonna go through the list.
I'm gonna talk at the very end of the hour after everyone else has had a turn.
Exactly. Isaiah, your hands up first. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess moving from a more serious topic to a more fun topic.
Go ahead, please.
Please.
It's a Star Trek movie. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, quote unquote. Has anyone ever seen the movie Free Enterprise? I saw it.
Yeah. Isn't it cool? It's so funny.
Karen's seen it.
And it's so Shatner being such a dick.
Yeah.
Shatner being a dick.
I'm not surprised.
Right in the middle of his range, like just right. He's like, I can do this.
Yeah, he definitely makes fun of himself in that movie, or he makes fun of Trekkies. It's a very juvenile, late '90s indie film, and I really love it.
Yeah, Shatner making fun of himself is a pretty good time if you can, I always loved his guest appearance in the last season of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where he plays himself, and I think it's that Will and Carlton really want to meet him, and they catch him at the dentist's office. Like he's in the dentist's office, and he's in the dentist chair, and they've given him the gas, so he's kind of loopy, and it's just William Shatner acting like just a goofy asshole for 10 minutes, and it's hilarious. So yeah, he's really good at self-parody when you can convince him to do it.
Yeah. Yes. When he's in the right mood. I've heard people say that they've either people have had really nice encounters with him, or they've had really bad encounters with him, and they seem to veer from one to the other. I'm afraid my encounter with a Star Trek person was not very good. I met Jonathan Frakes and hugged him and wouldn't let go.
Oh dear. He probably gets that a lot. I
said, yes, you're my Commander Riker, and hugged him, and I'm in my wheelchair, and I've got my arms around him.
And the fact that you're in the wheelchair too.
And the guy is saying really nicely to start with, yes, that's really nice. Come and get my autograph later. It'll cost you about $25. I think it's about £30. But just come and see me, and he's trying to peel my arms off.
Yes.
So this was at like a con or a personal appearance or something. You didn't catch him at the airport or coming out of his hotel and just latch on to him.
There were other people there, and there's me I said, "Oh, you're Jonathan Frakes." He said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh, it's wonderful." And I got my wheelchair and hugged him, and he went, "Oh, great!" And he kind of stiffens up. I said, "You're wonderful. You're marvelous. You're my Commander Riker." And he's going, "Yes, that's very nice. Can I go?" And I wouldn't let him go, and he's trying to peel my arms off him, and I'm not letting him go, and I'm greeting him, and eventually my husband at the time had to come and say, darling, please let the poor man go. Yes. He has things to do, and we have to be here to talk, so really it would help if you let him go.
I bet he would love it if someone would run up to him and have that kind of reaction just once and say, "I loved you as Stanley Hazard in North and South." And they haven't even seen Star Trek.
I said, you were brilliant in all these things. And I said, and you were brilliant in Charlie's Angels, and I loved doing that, and you were great in North and South. And I thought you were wonderful in Star Trek because you're my Commander Riker forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And the poor guy's probably thinking, yeah, this is really nice, but I kind of really want to go, and this girl won't let go of me. And for the love of God.
I love that shot of you holding a magazine in that one episode of Leverage. Anyway, Geek, your hand's up next. Go ahead.
Okay, so as before, I had mentioned like, hey, it is Pride Month and Juneteenth. It does connection and Willie Dorset Swan, and then there was also Disability Month. Because remember, disabled people get forgotten as well. There is a special occasion this month because between September 15th and October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Cool.
Yes, it is weird that it's like between September 15 and October 15. I honestly did thought it's like, oh, they're using different calendar. No, it's because like there's a lot of like South American countries that like have their like independence around like a September 15th as well too. Like
that makes sense, yes.
Yeah, Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Honduras, Nicaragua, many countries that the United States of America kind of cooed as well. I noticed that.
It's so weird how that keeps happening.
I'm still waiting my turn, you know. Like, okay, we've been 150 years. We it belongs.
No, yeah,
just because we don't respect their independence doesn't mean we can't celebrate it.
That's right. Through gritted teeth, congratulations on your independence.
We love you. We love you, really, but we're going to dominate you.
Yes, we want cheap bananas.
Yeah, exactly. Can we please?
And cocaine.
Yes,
and cocaine. Oh, buddy.
And we need your crack in order to like fund our like a neighborhood concert. Yes, we need the cocaine to put in black neighborhoods and fund the the arms deal we're doing.
So we can then scare white folks into thinking that crime and drugs are everywhere.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. Nixon needs his war on drugs.
Keep the cocaine coming, because if it ever actually stops, we won't be able to scare people with it.
It was Satanism in my school. It was Satanism, and
Satanism.
we had a Ouija board that we kind of got. We didn't really get. I couldn't, for the love of God, I couldn't work out what the hell you were supposed to do with it anyway. But we kind of, and they've discovered it under the bed, and we got this long lecture on the evils of Satanism and how we were all if we weren't careful, we were going to be taken from our dorms late at night and sacrificed on the altar of the chapel was attached to the school, the chapel of the altar of the chapel. So yeah, it was Satanism at my school, which I always thought, being sort of 17 and a bit kind of what the ever-loving. And when she said, and it's the Muslims, because she was a bigot as well, and it's the Muslims that are doing this. I remember I stood there and said, and first and only time I've ever turned around and shouted back at her headmistress, I said, "Don't be bloody ridiculous." Turned around and left the headmistress's office.
Well, I mean, I will say that I've been through a few exorcisms myself, and they're not a lot of fun.
I got 1,000 lines of "Thou shalt not disrespect thy teachers."
Okay, on the condition that the teachers do 1,000 lines of "Thou shalt not disrespect thy students."
Pedagogy. Well, practice pedagogy.
You know how famous Muslims are for worshiping Satan. You know how they're not people who are devout Muslims aren't attached to their God at all. They're total.
That's the gross thing about American Christianity.
They fast a whole month. They pray 5 times a day. They give money to charity. They're pretty kind of
not religious at all. They're total Satan worshippers.
It's all fake.
Go ahead.
That's the gross thing about Christianity in America in particular is and growing up in Sunday school. They always said, "Oh, no, all those other gods that these other cultures worship, those were just demons tricking people into thinking they were worshiping gods." They really just like shit on every other religion.
Unless they think they can not do that and convert people, because one of the tricks that Christian missionaries used to use when they would encounter like communities in like Africa or other parts of the world where it wasn't westernized or anything, they would say, "Oh, the God that your tribe worships, he sounds a lot like Jesus." And they would try to convince them, "Oh, they've actually been Christian this whole time. They just didn't realize it." So all they have to do is
keep in mind a part of the big problem.
funnily enough, that the Romans had with the Jews was that when they went into a province, they would say, okay, you've got this god, Azrael. We will put our god, Jupiter, next to your god, and we can all worship them together because they're basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And the Jews turned around and said, no, we don't worship our God like that. You're not going into our temple and our Holy of Holies. And there is a case of the first recorded silent protest when Pilate tried to enforce it, and the Jews basically knelt down and refused to move.
Yeah.
And they basically they just didn't know what the hell to do.
So
okay,
I just
go ahead.
You also got to keep in mind that a part of the appeal of the rapture for some people is that they're going to get to look down at any Jews that haven't converted at the last minute and go like, ha ha, I made it and you didn't. The people who cry anti-Semitism, but they don't actually give a crap about Jewish people.
Yeah, that's the whole St. Augustine, the other guy whose name I can't think of, said one of the great pleasures of being in heaven is looking down on the folks in hell and going, hey.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that.
Juvenile can
that's what the Left Behind books are about. And as I said, my cousin in the States sent me the first 5 books.
You also got to keep in mind that those Left Behind books and that interpretation of the rapture are a recent invention.
Yes.
Older versions of the text, they describe the rapture as just a spiritual awakening. Like everybody around the world was suddenly realizing in their minds, oh my God, it's all true. It's all real.
Just take a little LSD. And then the revelations, and you'll be fine.
Well, it's like there's a great line in Terry Pratchett's Carpe Jugulum where there's one of the priests from who's traveling through the hills of Lanka, and Granny Weatherwax says, I suppose you come from and said, oh yes, we brother walked with God. He walks with through the desert, and at the end we all saw appear and melt. And Granny Weatherwax goes, yeah, and I bet now that there are at least 20 different interpretations of that scene.
Yeah.
And the priest kind of goes, yeah, how do you know? Granny Weather just looks and says, yeah, that's the problem with gods. You can't there's no definitive, this is it, this is the truth, now go away.
Yeah. I also just want to note that even the interpretations of hell as fire and brimstone and endless torture, and you're always melting, but you're like regenerate so you can be tortured even more or whatever. That's also a pretty recent invention. All the interpretations of hell are more like how we describe purgatory now, where you just get to hang out with all the Greek philosophers and just meditate about your poor decisions in life. It was just supposed to be like the absence of God's presence. Yeah, which once you had seen a glimpse of it would be psychological torture and loneliness enough. But
oh my God, it's almost like H.P. Lovecraft in a way. I'll let you continue.
Yeah,
the point is
that's really what excommunication.
Okay, let Nick finish. Jesus Christ, stop talking over him.
The point is, it's a more meditative thing, and all this recent stuff about the rapture and the torture and the hellfire. It's just like trying to Hollywoodize it. Make it more sensational to. Rope
also
in.
To make it more of a threat.
Yeah,
it scared them into like the faith.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Joe's next on the hands up list.
Geesh, it's been up for a bit.
Can you remember what you even wanted to talk about?
I wanted to address like the first question, which was why it is not foregone, why even though Trump is clearly a menace and doesn't know what he's doing, that some people will still vote for him. It is because there are a good at least 30, probably closer to 40% of people who do not and are not allowed because of their news diet to see him acting that way, to see the good things. I have I have some conservative coworkers, and that has been my approach for these things, where I'm like, okay, that's just factually untrue, and whatever news source you're getting that from, they are lying to you. You should look at the other things they're telling you. I had somebody say about gun control. It's like, yeah, all Democrats are trying to take away your guns. Like, that is that is just untrue.
Yeah.
There are several races where a Democrat is like running on, I'm the Democrat that won't take your guns from you. There are or the recent Haitian migrant thing, where it's like, okay, if your news source did not tell you that this story originated in a city council where a avowed Nazi said that started spreading this, they are hiding things from you, and you should readdress whether or not that's an actual news source.
Yeah.
What's dispiriting to me is how easily people believe things like this. You hear something like, oh, your neighbors are eating dogs and cats, they're kidnapping people's pets. You'd think that the people who call others sheep and say, think for yourselves, that they would exercise a little healthy skepticism. They would go, huh, that actually sounds really crazy.
Skepticism doesn't really even enter into it.
I'm sorry, I was just about that. The point is, they believe it immediately. It's like they already want to believe these things. I'm like, yes, I knew it.
And it's not, I was thinking about this the other day. It's, I mean, I agree with you. It's a lack of skepticism for stuff. It's confirmation bias. It's lack of skepticism for stuff that reinforces your pre-existing beliefs. But it's also, it's a lack of, with a lot of it, it's just a lack of basic knowledge of civics and how government works, because there are so many right-wing talking points that I see being shared around on social media, many of them originating from Trump or Vance, about, well, if Kamala Harris wants to do X, Y, and Z when she gets elected, why hasn't she done it yet? She's the vice president. Or Trump the other day, he blamed Kamala Harris for the turnout at his rally. He claimed that there were 50,000 more people outside the arena that they couldn't allow in because Kamala Harris wouldn't approve, increased security for the event. As though the vice president is in charge of Secret Service deployment, as though the vice president has any significant executive power. The vice president has no significant executive power at all. The president can do executive orders and make decisions and stuff. The vice president can't. The vice president essentially just does what the president tells them to do if the president tells them to do anything. They have no power on their own. And
as I said, I watched the debate, and it was her face when Trump is making these statements, and it was the face of a mother who's watching her kid kind of perform on stage, and she's trying to be sympathetic, but there's this look on her face that says, son, hurry it up and just shut up now, because you're making a fool of yourself. It was that friendly mother's pained expression of kind of, please be quiet, and as well as coupled with, what the hell are you talking about?
Am I the only one seeing this?
But the split screen on that they had the split screen up was not just precious, it was valuable. In just having Trump being up there, rattling on, mindlessly, and Kamala looking over at him going, seriously?
What is this guy talking about?
I do have something to say about Trump. Okay, so one of the things that makes me not too worried is there's an advantage that he had in 2016 that he doesn't anymore. At least back then, it was like 80% racism, flavored with some sort of shallow populist rhetoric, just enough for like plausible deniability that he could convince, I don't know what you call them, the normies or whatever. And he doesn't have that anymore. It's just the racism. Like he's got absolutely like nothing, because he's given up on appealing to anybody but the bigot vote. So that's what, his audience has shrunk. It's hit a sort of ceiling where it can't go up anymore under normal circumstances. However, what I think could still win in this election is Israel dragging us into a world with the rest of the Middle East. And that would be incredibly unpopular. And it would, of course, it would be blamed on Biden and Harris, and that would cost them. And it makes me wonder, so they're still supporting this.
And we lost Nick.
Oh my. He's gone. Well, while he figures out whatever his problem was, Adam, your hand has now been up for forever.
The meeting is also locked.
Shit! You know what? Let me unlock it so he can get back in. Good. Good call. Good call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, Adam, go ahead.
Oh, Mrs. Nick. I think your mic is being full. Yeah, okay, go in the settings and making sure it's like picking up the correct microphone.
It happens.
Okay, so Isaiah, just like
we'll jump the line. Isaiah, you go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, mine was still, I guess, back with religion, and I actually used to go to church with people who used to like. I used to go to a black church where you never really heard this kind of talk, but when you go to a white church, you hear it a lot about like Muslims. That they're not our religion, or their God's a false God. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's not really about like conversion. It's about trying to make these groups of people more Western, more European, more white, more American. That's at the end of the day what it really is. It's not about that they think Muhammad or Islam is a false god. It's more about the image of Christianity being filtered through an Anglo-Saxon Western lens.
Yeah. No, absolutely right.
Pretty much.
Absolutely right.
It's kind of like when everyone, like, I saw a documentary a couple years ago, and I think I may have brought this up on the Patreon Hangout like years and years back, where when I was at a friend's house, they were watching Fox News, and they were talking about the Apollo 8's voyage around the moon, and how I think it was Mormon that read the Genesis story, and and Fox News tried really hard to make this like a purely Christian thing, as opposed to just him basically talking about Frank Borman, who I think who did the speech, just making it just a blanket religious thing. Fox News really wanted to make it like, oh, these were these Christian white folks that went around the moon, and they were doing it all for Christ, So it's not about converting people to God. It's more about it's more about trying to like Westernize their culture, just like what we did with the indigenous folks.
Bearing in mind that all the biblical myths, even the Hebrew Bible, particularly Genesis, can all be found in other religions. I know because it was part of what I posited for my doctorate. I started with the flood epic in religion, and kind of the Bible stories are not original. A lot of them come, if you look at the Sumerian myths and the older myths, I kind of posited my idea that Abraham had brought his religion, or at least a good part of it, when he fled from his city of into the wilderness. We don't know why he fled. There's a possibility that he was told to leave because he was becoming disruptive.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
I'm back. Okay. So what I was getting at, it makes me wonder if they have to choose between beating Trump or supporting Israel and losing to Trump. Will they throw this election? Will they decide that beating Trump isn't worth it?
Yes.
I'm sorry, beating Trump, as far as I'm concerned, isn't just necessary, it's mandatory.
What I mean is, will Biden and Harris and the Democratic Party decide that they would rather lose to Trump if it means that they can keep supporting this?
I mean, Biden might. I mean,
yes, sadly.
Yeah, that's one of the things. That's one of my least favorite things. That may, at the moment, it may be my least favorite thing about Joe Biden. Go ahead.
I know that Adam has no hand, so I want to make this as quick as possible. I put Clinton as an example, that she was scolding, student protesters, and I always get this sense from her that she is power adjacent. Like, she's comfortable in saying these things because she's like next door, and her role is, I just want to scooch over to the next chair and be the person in charge. And as long as she's in the queue, right, to power, it doesn't matter who comes after, right? Doesn't matter if other people can't even dream of being in the same room. She will defend it because it's, well, I lose, but I'm still in the running. In the next 4 years, I could have a chance. If not her personally, the party could go back into power. And they're not thinking that the other side just wants to slam the door in their noses, break the door frame, and hit them to the head, over the head until they're a bit bloody pulp. Because they think, I'm in power, I have money, I have resources, I don't have to worry about this, right? So that's what I wanted to say, and I think it's over to Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
If this administration sorry, go ahead.
Or Nick.
No. Yeah, go ahead. No,
if this administration loses over this, then we need to make sure that is Biden's legacy. That this is the thing that Biden is known for. Just imagine a period after every word.
I mean, that would be fine, but it would be better if the Democrats would actually learn a lesson from it for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Adam, go for it.
Okay. Am I coming through okay now?
Yes, you are. Perfectly.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting used to, I just got a new microphone, so it's like,
professional streamer moments. Go ahead.
Yeah, trust me. Anyway, first I wanted to say thanks again, Steve, for the video. That was awesome.
Sure, man. It was fun to do.
Second of all, I'm sorry for the Nazi rally we had here.
Well, you didn't run it.
I hold you personally responsible.
No, I didn't run it.
I hold you personally responsible.
I mean, unless you organized it, it's probably not your place to apologize.
Although you're welcome for the entertainment if you enjoyed because I remember my parents texted me and they're like, Adam, Hulk Hogan is officially on stage, because they were just kind of tuning in and out. And I'm like, oh dear God. No, you are kidding me, because that sounds like something they would do, is just joke around with me like that. So I flip over to it and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on here? The other good thing, though, is that apparently we got a lot of good press from people like Spotted Cow, the beer. I don't know if you guys have ever had it, because they don't ship outside of Wisconsin. So, but apparently they got they've got a huge bump in sales, and everyone was like, New Glarus Brewery, yeah. Except for the right wingers, but that was the whole grinder thing, though.
Yeah,
which was fantastic. When I heard about that, I just could not stop laughing. That was absolutely brilliant. And then I just wanted to say one more thing is, I did volunteer I was volunteering down in Chicago for the DNC. Just doing like stapling things together. Nothing terribly important, and then I heard, because obviously I was down in Chicago, and then I got a call saying, hey, you know that Harris and Waltz have just overfilled the Fiserv Forum where they had the RNC. I'm like, that is the ultimate maneuver. We've got a full thing. We've got a full thing here for the DNC, and then you guys come into Milwaukee and take over where they had the RNC.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah.
Power
I'm
move.
sorry. It was the ultimate power move. I can't remember the original question I had. So
that's okay.
I'm just kind of rambling. I'm just kind of rambling. At this point.
The thing
when you said you volunteered at a rally, and I thought you were going to say you volunteered at the Nazi rally, and I thought, oh God.
No. The RNC was the Nazi rally.
No,
the RNC was the Nazi rally.
No. I don't think I'd be here if I volunteered at the Nazi rally.
I have a Nazi fan base.
Yeah, I have prior commitments in that case. I'm not going to be here anymore.
The thing about Hogan at the RNC because like as a wrestling fan, the thing that mortified me was because I remember back in 2000, The Rock spoke at the RNC. And I think either The Rock or another WWE talent spoke at the DNC. Like, I can't remember if it was The Rock both times or if it was somebody else at the DNC, but the WWE sent
Nick Foley.
Maybe the WWE sent wrestlers to appear at both conventions. And the idea was that they were supposed to just have it was a nonpartisan message to just encourage people to register to vote, right? So The Rock came out at the RNC and he did not endorse George W. Bush or say vote Republican. He said register to vote and don't forget to vote. And then whoever it was at the DNC did the same thing. Hogan came out at the RNC this year and not only cut a wrestling promo like he would have on Saturday night's main event 40 years ago, but he explicitly endorsed Trump and called Trump his hero and told this utterly deranged story about, Donald Trump coming to see him wrestle and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just, so as a wrestling fan, I was mortified. I was like, oh God, don't what are you doing?
Hogan's always been a piece of garbage though. I
mean, sure. Personally, he's always been a piece of garbage.
Was he the one who squealed on the wrestlers trying to unionize?
Yes.
That was Hogan.
Yes.
Okay.
Now I want. This story has been simplified a little bit over the years. Hogan is a massive piece of shit, and Hogan did snitch on that attempt to unionize.
I'll say one thing. Oh,
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say I don't know much about. I know like surface level wrestling stuff. You're the wrestling super fan.
You're probably a normal person. That's why.
No. Come on, I watch your channel and I'm a Star Trek.
Oh, well, there you go. So, but no, Hogan did snitch on that particular attempt to unionize the wrestlers in the WWF, and because of that kind of iced any future attempts. But even, I mean, that they're probably, just because of the way the wrestling business works and the amount of control that promoters have always had, they're probably it would have been an uphill battle to unionize anyway. Like, it's not like a lot of people tell this. Yeah, a lot of people tell the story in a way of like, well, they were going to unionize and then Hogan killed it. It's not quite that simple. I mean, what Hogan did was horrible and inexcusable and bad, but it's not like we would have a completely unionized wrestling business today if not for Hulk Hogan. It's not that simple.
I was about to bring it up. Thank you, Geek. The Behind the Bastards, the 6-part episode with Sean Baby and can't remember the other guy from Crack they had on, but that was fantastic. And he is a monster.
Oh, he's awful.
That man is
he's awful.
An absolute monster.
I watched the Netflix documentary about him.
Oh, there is.
It just came out.
I'll have to.
It's like a 6-episode. It's all right. There's a lot of filler. There's a lot of just general WWE history that doesn't really directly connect to Vince, which kind of annoyed me a bit, because even though I'm a wrestling fan and I'm never going to complain if you're telling me about wrestling history, even if it's stuff that I already know, just because I find it entertaining. But it's like, this is supposed to be about Vince McMahon. Why are you telling me about storylines that were happening in like the 1980s that don't directly connect to Vince? It's like, I don't need to know this. This feels just like filler, but the stuff that was actually about Vince McMahon was really good. And definitely did not paint, a flattering picture of him, as I don't think any honest portrait could be flattering, because he's terrible. So,
Joe.
Anyways, Joe, your hand.
Joe.
So, while you were talking about the Trump essentially blaming the Secret Service or Harris for the Secret Service.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, there is like really good reporting on the fact that the Secret Service is in the shambles it is now. It is because between 2016 and 2020, there were bills to increase their funding that were not allowed to go through, and they were made bankrupt. Or not bankrupt per se, but their
underfunded,
heavily stressed by the fact that Trump had multiple residents that all had to be properly secured during his presidency, and he was personally profiting on forcing Secret Service members to stay in his hotels at inflated prices.
I remember that was an issue while he was president.
Yeah,
and it was like, it was reported on in the media, but then it was like, well, this is happening, and then that was it. Like, nobody seemed to press him on it. Nobody made it, and that was just one.
Nobody made a critical comment on it at all, and I was stunned that come on. I mean, this guy has got to be the single biggest violator of the emoluments clause since it was invented,
blatantly, like openly. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
he's
not
handing
even
money to people in grocery stores, so they vote for him.
Well,
there was exactly there was a really good hang on a second, there was a really good Onion headline, I think, during in the early period of the Trump presidency, when all of these like gross violations and corruption was sort of coming out about how he refused to distance himself from his business and he was profiting off the Secret Service renting his properties and stuff. There was an Onion article where it was Jimmy Carter saying, "You people made me sell my peanut farm."
Peanut farm.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember that one.
Like, what the hell was that? He's doing all this. You wouldn't let me keep my peanut farm?
And Badger me and my brother, who was nowhere near the White House.
Right.
Exactly.
But
you gave me shit for Billy Beer, and this guy over here is
The one thing I want to say was that sorry about that. Melania Trump didn't move into the White House until 6 months later, which means she was living with her son Barron at the time, who was underage, in New York. So they had to have a full setup for them. And the full setup for the White House, and anywhere else would Mr. I want to make a rally every 5 seconds wanted to do. Yeah. And of course, people don't realize the Secret Service does more than that. They do protection for any foreign national. Because I volunteered when a former Mexican president visited the United States. It was a small detail. It was like 3 guys, but and they had their own service. It wasn't that complex, but still, they have to assign somebody, right? And they also have to check about currency crimes. So if you you try to pass up a photocopy of a $20 bill, they're the ones who investigate, etc. So they have other things to do than babysit the first lady who doesn't want to move into the White House because she hasn't planned how to destroy the Rose Garden yet.
And also they have to investigate threats like put in the media as well, which you might remember increased heavily due to the inflammatory words of Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
Like, and this doesn't even mention the times that he's going out golfing every weekend too.
I have one thought.
Go ahead.
You know how when he lost in 2020, he incited a coup.
Yeah,
we sort of remember that.
I remember.
Even us in the UK can't forget that. And some of us watched it and thought, "Is this guy deranged? He lost. Why the hell is he now saying things like go march up Pennsylvania Avenue and I'll be there with you," which he patently wasn't.
Yeah.
I hate to say. I mean, I would want Harris to win. I don't want Trump to win at all. The way he disrespected our royal family is just. We won't go there. But is it likely that if he lost again, he'd do the same again?
Oh yeah,
he's gearing up.
There's an article.
He'll be the president then.
On a cracker.
He won't be the president then, so that's one thing. He's going to be the candidate, not the president. But you go ahead, Steve.
There's an article in the New York Times today about the legal challenges that Trump's people are gearing up to make if Harris wins. Hopefully, if Harris does win, it will be resounding enough that no legal challenge will really. People will obviously see like, oh, this is just sour grapes. This election wasn't close enough for there to be any kind of legal challenge, and also they quoted one of Trump's many former lawyers, who you might remember is named Ty Cobb. Not that one. Not that one.
Just as racist, but different one.
Yeah. And he said, the problem with these legal challenges, if they do decide to do this, if Trump loses the election and then they decide to mount these legal challenges, is that they will have the same problem that they had last time, which is there's not going to be any evidence. Yeah. Because they're going to be trying to prosecute crimes that didn't take place, which is what happened the last time when he tried to raise all these legal challenges in Georgia and everywhere else. They didn't go anywhere because there was no evidence that anything wrong happened. And presumably the same thing's going to be true this time. So,
well,
okay.
I'll cross my fingers and hope that it doesn't happen. But I don't put anything past this guy.
If everything crossed,
This time there's going to be a major difference.
Fingers, toes, legs, eyebrows.
Go ahead, Lauren.
The difference this time is that you've got Biden in the White House. And if you've got Biden in the White House through January the 19th, What happens on January 6th when the gang tries to march on Washington? You think Biden for 1 second won't hesitate to, hell, they'll have the National Guard in place before Trump's people will even have a chance to gather.
I would hope so.
So great just for them to just a bunch of them just get arrested. Oh. Anyway, before things happen.
Oh. Okay, exactly. I want to go back. I want to go back to
the danger that has not yet come.
I agree. I want to go back to the hands. So, Russell, your hand is up first. Go ahead.
Yoo-hoo, Russell.
Sorry.
You're right. Nope.
Okay. I hate the fact that there was a coup when Trump lost 2020 and they tried to overtake the White House. Now, this might be contentious to both Republicans and Democrats alike, but why wouldn't the military just use extreme force to eliminate these radical people?
They're white, right? Radical.
Well, it's called due process.
Yeah, well, and also the military as well. Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that. The military is not supposed to be employed on domestic issues.
Or the police department.
Okay, I think that's kind of what Lauren was saying. Like, use the police, use the National Guard to kind of, to be ready in case something January 6th like happens again this coming January 6th. But I mean, yeah, you can't, unless people have committed crimes or provided probable cause that they've committed crimes. We can't just go round up Trump supporters just for being Trump supporters.
Now, I want to say something very important here, because the one thing you want to avoid, I'm old enough to remember the 1990s, right? I was an adult, a young adult back then. You don't want to create another Ruby Ridge. You don't want to create another, Waco, Texas. As satisfying that it would be to have a police officer go like, "Oh, you're a Nazi," and just wail him until his head breaks.
Yeah.
The unfairness is that the police shouldn't do that to anybody.
Yes.
That should be the message, right? And these people already have so much a grievance in them, because their biggest fear is not that the cops can crack heads, it's that the cops are cracking the wrong heads, right?
Yes.
Me, I'm supposed to be fine because I look pale, and I'm supposed to, as long as I don't say my real name in my language, I'm gonna be fine. But the moment I step out of that door, here comes the gun, here comes the taser, here comes the beating, right? Because you have to stay in line. So ironically,
I don't know, you sound quasi-Hispanic though.
Yeah, well, quasi is
quasi
is a pretty loaded
quasi-Hispanic.
But 2020
they already broke the law.
I mean, true. Because this is when you talk about, ultimately, if it goes to the ultimate way, we talk about counter-insurgency here. And when we talked about that earlier, the irony of counter-insurgency is that you have to be willing, if you want to win it, to do all of the things. You have to sometimes be so soft that you seem like you're letting people get away with stuff. And sometimes you got to be so harsh that you leave no room for maneuver, right? And if you have to show them, the most powerful weapon is to show them that they're powerless. And no matter how many numbers they bring, no matter how much they shout, they don't give an inch, right? The one thing you don't want to do is the cops ranking lines, or it's like, nope, we're here. What are you going to do about it? You're not going to move. You're not going to happen. You can shout all you want, and you're ineffective. That's the actual message. You cannot get rid of racism, but what you do with these groups is you isolate them, and then you starve them to death. So whoever is left doesn't actually have any real power, and that takes time and dedication. And no matter how satisfying it will be to just go like, okay, it's time for break your skull. Sometimes you have to do that, but most of the time, it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and let's not forget. Let's not forget the thing that in previous generations, the thing that broke the back of, for instance, the Ku Klux Klan in the 60s and 70s wasn't the police rounding them all up. It was people sued them and took all their money. It wasn't like a violent thing or a legal thing. It was it was a legal thing in the sense that they took them to court, but it wasn't to send anybody to prison. It was they took all of their resources.
But also the FBI got very good at infiltrating those groups. Even after Hoover was like, Hoover really did break some laws there as well.
FBI break laws?
Yeah, but basically,
My
Hoover didn't want
God,
to do it.
J. Edgar Hoover broke laws. I'm shocked.
I know.
Hoover was like the real dangerous in the left.
He broke laws.
Yeah,
and it wasn't Kennedy. It was Johnson. Johnson was all over the place, but Johnson basically turned to him and said, "I'm your boss, and I want these people gone. Do what needs to be done." Yeah. And he turned all those resources that were being turned against, later on the Black Panther Party and all that, and counter pro, the whole program, COINTELPRO, and did it to the Ku Klux Klan, and that's in many ways you can see the paranoia in many of these groups. Like they'll go like, "Oh, are you a federal agent? Oh my God, no, you're a federal agent, right?"
Yeah,
and so because it works.
I'll do this quickly. As you know, my parents lived in America. Sorry, not Russia, America. And my mum.
Same diff.
I was going to say, they're becoming more and more alike all the time.
My mum's of Russian descent. So, of course, she spoke Russian. She worked in London as a translator and she never, ever told me much about that. But quickly, she was fine with being half Russian or mostly Russian until she heard some people talking about how the Russians were the enemies and it was the Americans' job to nuke them. At which point she became very, very cagey, because she actually and she heard it at the church group, and she said she didn't much like church, but she liked the social circle, and she liked the fact that it got me and my brother out into the community, and she earned a bit of money from making cake. She used to make if there was a 10-year-old, she'd make a cake with the number 10 on it, and these are the days when you didn't have the pans to actually do it, so she had to do it all from scratch with bread pans and circular cake. So she did that, so she became very, very cagey. But you're quite right, you can't stop that kind of hatred by sort of going in and saying, right, you're racist, bang. Well, if you have to turn and say, are you sure that there are enemies? Have you met anyone? Have you met any Russians? Or do you just go by what the media are telling you?
One of the great things that I benefited from as a field service engineer is I had a chance to travel. I do a lot of international travels. Steve, this is a point I think I've made to you before. And I mean, I'm lucky enough to go to England, France, Germany, Italy, and then the big ones, which were India and Singapore. And the one thing you learn faster than anything else is that for the large portion, people are people. And I mean, there was a time when I would have loved to go to Russia and, work with, people, do parametric testing, work on, my specialty, which is parametric testing. But the blunt end of the stick right now is you couldn't pay me with Vladimir Putin in the front office because I would be scared out of my mind that I'd wind up becoming a political prisoner.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for that. Well, that's a reasonable fear.
No, I've never been either, and I could speak a little bit of Russian. Здравствуйте, как вас зовут, which is hello. What's your name?
Большое спасибо.
Yeah.
I just realized it's already one. Before we wrap up, there's something I've been wanting to bring up since this. Steve's video about the hatchery, about the baby bugs.
Yes, the Enterprise episode. Yeah.
One thing you have to understand about that episode, from my understanding, that much of that season was a commentary on 9/11 and America's response to it. And here we have a case where so anyway, you gotta keep that in mind with this episode too. I was right there with Archer for most of it, right up until the Xindi were born and could fend for themselves, until adult Xindi came and rescued them. Right up until that moment, anyway, that's me. But clearly, you can see the rest of the crew, they just cannot bring themselves to see Xindi lives as equal to human lives. Because they're bugs, and bugs are icky, or because they're enemies, because they hit us first, or any number of reasons. And, it just makes you think about how anytime there's a war, of course, we think of the people on the other side as, undeserving of any consideration that we would afford our own people. And so
less than human.
Yeah. And much of that season is, of course, okay, well, how many lines do you cross? Just how inhuman do you treat your enemies as if you're hurting? So I just think, I know I know like this indie themselves are such a weird design that it's hard to make that connection, but that's kind of how I saw it. Like I saw how the rest of the crew acted, and I'm like, wow. It's why I appreciate that Archer brought up, what if it was like 31 primates? That's pretty subtle. He could have said 31 humans, but he was making a point about like how, you know, something more relatable to us. He could have said humans or Vulcans, but he looked at our clade because we're dealing with bugs. And it's like, well, what is like bugs they look different in our growth. Anyway, I don't know.
No, I think it's a good point. I wish the episode had not gone in the direction of, you know, oh, Archer is actually not in his right mind, and that's why he's doing this. I think it kind of undercuts those arguments that he makes. Because if it had been, you know, more, if the episode had been more about, well, the captain wants to do something, you know, humanitarian for the enemy, and the rest of the crew doesn't want him to do it, that's a really interesting idea, and definitely pertinent in like the you know, the post 9/11 era. But the way they did it, it's like, oh yeah, Archer's making these arguments, and yeah, they're kind of compelling, but oh, never mind, he's been infected by the eggs.
You know what the funny thing is? After that first scene, I completely forgot about that bit. Like my mind just kind of glazed over it. So for the rest of the episode, I was engaging with it as if Archer was being completely genuine, and it was only at the end when they brought up the twist, I'm like, So anyway, it's funny though that there are wasps that do that in real life. Like they'll jab a caterpillar or something and brainwash it into defending her.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For a hot second there, I thought you meant white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
Yeah. Well, they do that too.
Yeah, it's called gaslighting. It's gaslighting, not
we don't
infection.
The point is something like that happening to humans. Us having our own parasitic wasp. That's kind of terrifying. Much in the way the cordyceps in The Last of Us are.
In Last of Us,
jump to humanity.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Doctor Who episode, The Ark in Space? That's about a group. Yeah, that's about a group of bugs who do what the humanese wasp do. They inject their kind of larvae into human bodies, and the larvae grow and erupt out of humans. And it's
okay.
You could
now
say the same thing about Alien.
We're past the hour. I'm going to wrap up the show, but Isaiah and Felix both have their hands up, so I want to get to them. Everybody else, shut up. And then after they're done talking, we're going to end the show. Okay. Isaiah, go ahead.
Can I just make one thing?
Oh my fucking God, Kara.
You answer the question.
I just called on Isaiah. I just this second said, Isaiah, you talk. And then you're like, can I say something? No, you can't.
No, not now. When you finish the question.
Okay, well, yes. Okay, yes. When we get past Isaiah and Felix, you can say something.
I'll mute myself. I'll shut up.
Okay, go. Isaiah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that I'm planning on postponing my KSC trip till next February, so I can like get my teeth cleaned and get some work done. So I'm just saying, like, because I know people have seen my outfits.
Yeah.
But I'm probably gonna like move that to next year, so I can go ahead and get some, like, because I got like toothache, so I need new.
Well, you need to take care of that. Teeth are nothing to fuck with. Yeah.
So
if there was a God, I would punch him in the face for giving his teeth. I'd be like, there must have been a better way to do this.
And if there's multiple gods, you find the one that's responsible
with that punch.
Mandibles.
I'll find the tooth God. I'll be like, was this your idea? What was this? What the fuck?
Steve, we should just have gizzards.
Yeah, or
we should just have gizzards.
Or just make them like attached to your skull or something, so they don't fall out. Like what is this? What are we doing?
Speak for yourselves.
Yeah, I would much rather eat rocks. Okay. Wait. That makes me sound weird.
That's weird. You don't. Okay.
No teeth, eat rocks.
Let's just be normal and eat rocks. Felix, go ahead. You've had your hand up.
Oh, well, hold on. And Kara said she was going to wedge a question in between this. So I'm going to
please, Felix, don't let her in.
Felix, don't let her in. I'll be very quick.
Just talk. Don't leave her an opening. Go ahead.
Opening. 22 words. Go.
I was just going to say, next month I have a really spooky story for you.
You're out of words.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Next month, spooky story, and we'll make sure you get a chance to tell it. Okay.
Give it to Seth Andrews.
It's spooky. Yeah, he can read it in his podcast voice.
Okay. So this goes back to the pre-show. Okay, guys, the green room. Tune into that on Patreon. Go put this up on Patreon. But anyway, the thing of meeting IRL like celebs, like there was the glomming on to Jonathan, a hapless Jonathan Frakes. Does anybody remember who Charlene Harris was?
Oh, wait, that
vaguely rings a bell.
Vaguely, very much. True Blood?
Okay, yeah, I never watched True Blood, so I wouldn't know.
So she's the most normal-looking Midwestern grandma-like type, right? Because they're the freaky ones. They're the real freaky ones.
She was also in Twister, wasn't she?
Well, she was the writer, so I don't know. Maybe she was as a walk-on. Charlaine Harris.
Yeah.
Spelled like you wouldn't think. Okay, so but anyway, I was at this little thing called Dragon Con, right? And it was small, but there was this woman, and she was of a non-traditional body type. She's older. She's like 60. She's got a cane for assistance, and she's taking a break, sitting down, in a room. And it was to me, it was just this person, because it was a writer, so who cares, right? And I just sat down next to her and asked her how the con was going and how she liked it, because she was just walking the floor anonymously, having a blast. And apparently, I didn't realize her fucking entourage was all around her. And I was totally oblivious to who I was talking to. Apparently, I was talking to the God Queen of their vampires, of their sparkly vampire HBO thing, right?
Oh, and I was just been on your knees kissing her feet.
Yeah, it was just I literally took a spot by her because it was open, and I was like, "Fuck, this is Dragon Con. We are just going to eat a lunch here." And I asked her how she was doing, offered her food, made sure that she, is she getting rest? What's she seeing next? And it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
I will say that
I have met Christopher Lee. I did behave a bit better there.
Oh yeah, no. I will tell you, I've got some stories about Rip Tyler.
Lee might I
was introduced to him.
Okay. Let Felix finish his goddamn story.
All right, I got a bunch more, because apparently celebs are trying to hit on my husband, and they include John Delancey, Mr. Sulu, and fucking Rip Taylor. So I will, if there's any interest in Rip Taylor hitting on your husband, your gay husband, I will be happy to put that one into the Patreon exclusive.
That's hilarious.
There you go.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Like I said, I met him, and he enjoyed it. And I was doing a piece for my own sort of college newspaper at the time, and he sat me down next to him, and he said, "How are you doing?" And I clammed up. I couldn't say anything. I'm sitting next to this star. He's fielding questions for everyone. I'm sitting next to him, and people are looking at me thinking, "Who is this girl sitting next to this star? Is she his daughter, a niece?" And he kept sort of telling me, saying, "So what do you think?" And I turned into this kind of gibbering mess of, and he eventually said, "Look, I know it's daunting, but you've got to make some sense, sweetie, or I won't be able to answer any of your questions." And then I said, because I'd come to see him about the new Wicker Man, I said, "Do you know they're making another Wicker Man?" And he just looked at me and said, "Oh dear God, no."
And he was right.
And I made a whole story out of that. "Oh dear God, no." Those 4 words, I made a whole story about the look on his face and the kind of expression of, "Oh dear God, no." And that was it. And I kind of,
I'll be honest. Nick Cage made that movie, though.
I do love the Nick Cage Wicker Man.
The only thing going for it.
I love the Nick Cage Wicker Man. What other movie can you watch Nicolas Cage in a bear costume punch a woman unconscious? Like he like lopes up a hill and fucking knocks somebody out. Cold cocks a woman, steals her bike, and doesn't doesn't he kick Lily Sobieski into a fucking wall? Don't think they're having that fight, and he side kicks her, and she goes flying into the wall.
I would love an entire Spider Noir movie with Nick Cage's character.
Yeah,
yes,
it's amazing.
And the fact
Can
that
I say you're all nuts?
Oh, yes, they are. No,
Tara,
not.
Have you figured out yet that normal is a personal concept?
Yeah,
oh yeah.
The word normal is eugenics.
I'm tilting as well. I know.
Okay, Russell's hand just went up real quick, Russell, and then we're ending the show. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, does everybody forget Face Off, where Nicolas Cage grabs that nun's butt and goes, "Hallelujah! Hallelujah!"
Oh, God. That's like the most Nicolas Cage thing that ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's like John Woo said, just do whatever you want.
Yeah. I think I do have a nice hat. I decided to wear my silliest hat today in order of you, Steve Shives.
Ha ha!
But
you look like Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, I bet so. As like
the problem with that hat is that my grandfather would be cutting all those
stray things, like, the strings. Trim it up.
But like, would people want to join in these ones for like in like 4 weeks from now on like October 27th? How could they do that, Steve Shives?
If they want to be present when Kara tells her spooky story.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we do these on the last Sunday of every month, and it is open to all of my Patreon patrons and channel members, and it's first come first serve. I try to lock the meeting when we get about a dozen of us in here so that it's not more chaotic than it already is. And yeah, so at patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron, or click the join button on the YouTube channel to become a channel member. And at any level of membership or patronage from $1 a month on up, this is one of the benefits that you can take advantage of. We do this on the last Sunday of every month. And also you can submit questions ahead of time for the Ask Away live streams that I do every 2 weeks. And I answer those questions in the first portion of the show. So yeah. Geek, do you have any final plugs or
I guess
thoughts? Since you're the unofficial co-host for these things.
Mostly, as I was about to type out in the live chat, just remember about the charitylinks.page as well.
Yes.
Joanna Roberts is actually, believe it or not, half Hispanic on her mother's side, even with the name Roberts, and like her being a pale as ass as well too. She got her looks from her father, her Irish father, unfortunately, or fortunately.
The Irish people like, unfortunately, what the hell?
Well, she looks like a gringo, basically. But I gave Joanna Roberts money out of the $470 that I had left. I gave her $180 already this weekend, but she has food for this week and able to get dinner last night. However, Phoenix has lost their bank account as well too. They have some form of banking as well. They're kind of just dreading, are they going to lose their Section 8 voucher as well too, since they lost their the temporary disability assistance program like 9 months ago or however long. They were denied the Social Security supplemental security income again, and the police had to come for a crisis call. Thankfully, she lived through that as well too, and Archie, her pet, didn't get enough attention from the cops apparently, according to Phoenix. But please give money to Phoenix. Basically, they need money for everything. No social alchemy today because the hurricane hit South Carolina, so John Bruckman's power ran out as well too. He's surviving, but
I was gonna say, I hope his power going out is the worst thing he has to deal with, because some of that is just horrific.
Yeah. We lost a lot of people down here in Florida. I think 56.
Yeah.
Tallahassee was actually only 10 miles away from the worst.
Yeah. And then the flooding in the Carolinas is atrocious.
Friday night, I wasn't sure I could get back in time because we had to take our cat to the vet, and both the trains and the buses were cancelled because of floods. So sort of sitting in a bus stop, in the dark, with the cat howling next to you because she's cheesed off, and people coming up to you and giving you filthy looks like you kind of, I don't know, taking
what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
Are you beating that cat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she just this, and we're kind of going, we're sorry. She always acts like this. And of course, in the vets, we took her in, opened the door. She could be troublesome. She strides out like a queen, sits down, and looks up at the vet with this kind of, "Aren't I wonderful?" You just stand there and see. Actually, before we go, it's Steve's fault that I know this spooky story, because he was talking about Trump's behavior to Arlington, and it reminded me of something that happened between my brother when we visited Hawaii. And if you know what's at Hawaii, you'll get the gist.
Well, there's a tease for you. Oh, I can have an educated guess what you're referencing. But okay, well, and one last thing, since Geek reminded me of this, talking about Joanna and Phoenix's situation, which is obviously an ongoing thing that they have to deal with constantly. If anybody watching is curious to know more about the details of not their situations personally, obviously, but that general kind of thing, the main story on John Oliver's show last week was about how fucking impossible it is to get on disability and Social Security in this country and stay on it, and the ridiculous means testing and it's and how you can only have so much money in the bank, and you can only have so many assets, or else they'll cut you off, and sometimes they want you to pay back what they gave. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
We have caps on income for disabled people, but not billionaires.
Yeah, it's such. I mean, for the people who are most in need and who are in many cases in dire need of assistance, to have to jump through those kinds of hoops on not just once, but on an ongoing basis, and to constantly live with this cloud over their head where they might lose their benefits if they go $1 over a certain limit. It's ridiculous.
It's very similar here in the UK.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is it doesn't really save money, because both the means testing itself and the corruption allowed within the means testing industry costs the government more money than just paying the people.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense on a humanitarian level or on a fiscal level. It's completely ridiculous. And all it does is feed the confirmation bias of people who believe that somehow poor people should be punished for being poor, and that they need to prove that they're worthy of not being poor before we give them before we give them the tiniest little scraps. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so that's I think it's probably on YouTube, the main story from last week tonight, and it's a good
same in the UK.
Summary of the situation.
I've applied 6 times. I can't stand without help or assistance. I can't get up. I basically can't stand without hanging on to something, so I have a walker and a wheelchair. I have been refused 6 times. I've been assessed 4 times.
It's ridiculous.
What do I have to do now?
Wait! I thought all that Brexit savings was going to flow to you. I thought they were in a big bus and give you that.
Nigel Farage lied to you. Promised. I can't believe it.
I never voted for him.
I can't believe it.
His name. No. His name. Wait, for mispronouncing his name. His name is Nigel Fartage.
Oh, Nigel Fartage. I'm sorry.
I took great pleasure because he had a conference and they had 1,000 seats and you could book your seats for free. I took great pleasure many years ago in booking 500 of them and knowing that nobody would turn up. Best day of my life.
I'm sorry, we're so loud. We need to
end the show. Okay. Hang on. I'm going to end the show now, and then we can talk about things until inevitably I decide I'm not doing it anymore and I end the Hangout. So, all right. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back to do this again next month. I'll be back with the usual kinds of videos in the coming week. And thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for being patrons and members. Thanks everybody for watching. See you later.
Bye.